from Serap's position, what's your take on this particular initiative by the government?
Thank you very much. It is one of those really good actions of government, but which the intention clearly is not good. And it's not because those in government do not understand economics or they do not understand the status of Nigerians. It is simply an act of impunity, which we've seen happen in this country, in this round of democracy since 1999. And really, what is the logic behind this? One wonders. And one need not be an expert in economics. You don't need to have a PhD in economics to understand that this does not stand up to either morality, legality, or any sound economic principles. And we have a precedent for this. It is not the first time this kind of charade is happening. The previous administration, that is the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, as stated in November 2020, you can recall clearly that it had lifted millions of Nigerians out of poverty. According to the government at that time, they used one of the tranches of Abacha to pay 5,000 naira to 1.2 million households. Incidentally, quite fortunately too, the National Bureau of Statistics, which is an agency of government, released a report that statement stating that 133 million Nigerians are living in poverty. So the question is, who has the government succeeded in lifting out of poverty? I think it's the same thing this administration wants to do. It just doesn't make sense. What is the logic? What is the economic principle behind paying 8,000 naira to 12 million households that would bring them out of poverty? You can't even do that within 10 years. How much more for 6 months? It is just another fruitless venture. It looks, to me, if you have to compare this, it is a case of 5 steps forward and 20 steps backward. If at all there are going to be any kind of economic adjustment, it gives those in power who should do that. Starting from the president to the local government chairman to cut the cost of spending. Not the wasteful ventures in the back on time and again. Yes, they've just approved 70 billion from the National Assembly. This is the same National Assembly that has 228 billion as their budget in 2023 budget. In the first place, these are people who do not know the exact amount they take on. So how can government claim to want to push in the effect of poverty and the more subsidy of Nigerians by wasteful spending on the part of those who are in government? And then this rather, it's another aspect of tokenism, and this tokenism is not well intentioned, by the way, to try to give back to the people, which cannot work. What the government should do, and it's very simple, cut the spending of governance, cut the waste, cut the losing, and invest in massive critical infrastructure that will benefit the people. And even as kind of palliative, the intervention should be well structured and managed transparently and accountably, not the ones we've seen in the past. It just didn't work, and this cannot work either.
What would be then an alternative? Because if we're saying that the government cannot do this, is it because it's going to amount to a waste of funds, or because Serap thinks that economically this is not viable, or perhaps we do not have the data to identify those that these monies are intended for? What exactly is the problem with the government wanting to issue palliatives? Because we know that this is done around the world. It's not like it's the government trying to do something that has not been done before. In the United States, they have a system where this works for unemployed people, for elderly people, etc., etc. So what exactly makes this particular idea by the government ill-timed or wrong at the moment?
Thank you very much. There are two issues. You can look at this from two perspectives, at least from Sarah's point of view. One is the transparency and accountability issues, and second are the economic principles behind this proposed action of government. And both of these issues can be looked at from the context of precedent. We have seen this happen too many times. This is not a new thing. We've seen this happen too many times not to understand what this is and what the results will be, because we've seen it before. Let's speak to the transparency and accountability issues. We've seen government put money into ventures that we've not seen how it is managed a lot of times, so many times. And I've given you an example earlier of the same cash transfer to the people that the past administration has done that hasn't benefited anyone till today and was shrouded in secrecy. Government could not even account for this. Serap went to court on this matter. We have another matter pending in court on that same cash transfer program. And so again, you can liken it to money just being filtered away. And then the second aspect are the economic principles behind this. looking at the nature of poverty, you gave an example of what happened in America during COVID-19. Of course, we have different structural economies when you look at it, when you look at those provisions. The level of poverty in Nigeria cannot even accommodate that structure. And that's not talking of the lack of transparency and accountability in the management of those funds. How will 8,000 naira paid over 6 months to 1 year really lift anybody out of poverty? With the rising cost of goods and services, it is just not logical. It doesn't make sense. And again, we've seen this happen before. It's not new. It never lifted anyone out of poverty. If at all, it made people more poorer. And probably some few people who ended up pocketing those monies, it made them richer. And that is what's going to happen ultimately in the system. Which is why this is just another fruitless and wasteless venture on the part of the government, which is just an act of populism.
All right, let's come to Mr. Onyefuru, the TUC chairman, here with me. You listen to Serap's deputy director. You've gotten the position of Serap, which I must say seem to align a lot with what TUC has said. But one thing I would say is different is the fact that in this case, the Labour already has an ongoing negotiation with the government to look at certain measures to put in place. What measures would Labour think is most preferable to put in place as against just issuing out palliatives to certain people?
Thank you very much again, Ifemi, because that's a good question, and we've responded to this question several times before now. And to reiterate, Labour is interested as a matter of right in the overall welfare of our members, as a matter of interest in the overall welfare of Nigerians. Government unilaterally removed fuel subsidy on the 29th of May this year, and immediately all energy substances in Nigeria, the prices escalated to upward of 250 to 300%. That led to immediate and instant inflation. As you are aware, NBS published about 22.8% inflation for June, and we know that July is going to be worse, is on the upward trend in terms of the value we are getting as Nigerians. Cost of goods, even food, cost of food across the country escalated to up to 300, in some instances 500% for cost of goods. Cost of services today, if you want to fly Port Harcourt to Lagos, is average 85 to 140,000 naira. Huge increase. If you want to travel intra-city within Port Harcourt, transportation cost has also increased. And kudos to River State government that took own initiative to provide free buses aimed at ameliorating some of these challenges that citizens face. Now, back to your question. Labour is simply asking government to sit down with technocrats, with professionals, and then work out a workable program, a workable economic policies that will indeed pull Nigerians out of poverty. I'm happy with the position of Serap because clearly NBS, which is actually also a parastatal of government, has clearly stated that 133 million Nigerians live below poverty level, the highest in the world. And you can't just now wake up and say you want to impact 12 million families. If you're impacting 12 million families, okay, let's even put that on a fair scale to say, okay, 12 million of 133. So what happens to over 120 million Nigerians that you're not even going to be thinking about? It's not fair to them. It's not equitable. In fact, it violates all known conventions that this country signed into. This country signed into ILO Convention 131. This country signed into ILO Convention 76. This country signed into a lot of provisions aimed at ensuring that its citizens do not suffer, that there is justice, there is equity, there is fairness. In this instance, we don't see any of such.
All right, Mr. Onyefuru, we'll just have to interrupt you there. And Mr. Dari, you'd also just stay on the line for us. We'll go for a very short commercial. When we come back, we'll also hear what Serap is suggesting the government should do, or what step it might want to take with regards to this program by the government. You too, drop your contributions on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be right back.
Info.
News on Nigeria Info. The federal government has said 8,000 naira for 6 months to 12 million families. How this is going to work, and it has to be the poor, which has also brought up the conversation as to how would you arrive at that statistic. Two fine gentlemen. I'm speaking with the Deputy Director Serap Kolawole Oluwadari with us, is speaking with us via telephone. In the studio we have the TUC Chairman in Rivers State, Foster Onyefuru. Mr. Foster, we heard you already trying to highlight some of the steps taken. You would continue with that, but quickly, let's hear from Mr. Dari now. What would Serap say should be done? Is Serap looking at trying to stop the government from going ahead with this plan? What exactly is next step for Serap with regards to this palliative plan by the government?
Thank you very much. Our recommendations and talk toward the actions. Our recommendations are that government should first and foremost ensure that it is transparent and accountable. And within that context is also the need, it's a necessity and it's a demand on behalf of the people to cut the cost of governance. That is the recurrent expenditures that public officers, particularly those elected and appointed, take on. That is the first place to start. And then secondly, to make sure that these funds that are being saved are redirected to critical areas of infrastructure. For instance, transportation. Transportation is one of those short-term means that which government can cushion the effect of fuel subsidy. And that means that government-run initiatives to provide buses and other means of transportation is one of the main government should go. But most importantly, no matter the amount of money we throw at this, if it is not managed transparently and accountably, again, it's going to be a little or no results. And having said that, that means that government should cut the cost of governance by starting from the president by doing a good example, cutting the cost of governance, doing away with pension laws, doing away with security votes, and this with the unlawful allocations to the National Assembly. Then, those allocations to critical infrastructure, both for short term and long term, can really be efforts starting with the immediate 6 months period. And our next line of action, if government does this application, ultimately, which we are really also covered. Yes, exactly. And it is based on that. We are so throughout the lifetime of the 8 years of President Buhari, and unfortunately, it's unfolding before our very eyes. So the suspicion and the fear is palpable. It is based on logic and experience.
Has Serap also considered perhaps working with other organizations that share the same perspective about this? Is that from a more robust front?
Yes, we are always looking out for partners and drive advocacy initiatives like this. Yes, we've been in talk with some civil rights organizations, but not with Labour, though. But this kind of conversations are always welcome.
All right. Thank you very much. You just stay on. I would have a few more questions for you before we let you start. Labour had its own plans as to what it thinks the government should have done. And you had even mentioned that, well, there was also talks of a palliative, but you did not expect the palliative plan that Labour wanted to suggest to the government was not to be done in this manner. So if you can enlighten us on that, please.
Thank you very much for that question again. And not to repeat what my brother Kolawole have said, in terms of palliative, the minimum we expected from government is policies that will encourage such palliatives that will touch the life of Nigerians and pull them out of poverty instead of pulling them further into poverty, like this purported 8,000 naira for 12 million families. For example, if government is able to fix the refineries and refineries work efficiently, even if it's just 2 refineries out of what we have that come to work, begin to produce and refine and begin to refine petroleum products, cost of transport is that one place in instrument that is verifiable and is subjected to public view, so that we will be sure that indeed such amount of money has been saved. If such amount of money has been saved, why can't we channel such fund into providing infrastructures that automatically you subsidize for Nigerians, and that will be Latin. That won't be 8,000 naira that will pull Nigerians into poverty, and then after 6 months you now say they should go ahead and die, and just 12 million out of 133 million, which is unfair. We also ask government to immediately, already a pilot of CNG was done in Benin, and as we speak, those facilities that federal government provided for CNG are still there. Why can't we expand that pilot? Since we've done the pilot and it worked, vehicles were converted, measurable facts are there to prove this.
I had a colleague of mine who converted a generator. It now runs on gas.
Thank you very much. So why can't government now pick this project and deploy across the country? Because if government does that, what it automatically means is that Nigerians will have options. And once options are available, you will notice that the cost of goods and services will go down, will begin to go down.
But there's also complaint about the cost of gas even in the country where we have it in abundance.
And we are flaring. Those are the things we are talking about. Over 70%, if not 80% of total gas we produce in this country is flared. Why can't government channel its effort towards ensuring that we build facilities to receive this gas we are flaring, reduce flaring to a very bare minimum, such that we can tap from the abundant resources that God has given to this country? Nobody is talking about that. The savings from fuel subsidy can build gas plants, even LNG plants. We have an LNG in Nigeria where our major customer is based in overseas. Why can't we have an LNG to provide for Nigerian needs? Why must we as a country be priding that we have just one LNG when we have resources? In fact, 500 billion can revamp one of our refineries in Nigeria. If you add another 500 billion, you can pride of another LNG
But the
plant.
turnaround maintenances have been carried out in the past couple of years. Isn't that being probed? Isn't Labour asking questions as to those monies that were put into the turnaround maintenances in the past, were provided for in the budget, and we still do not have those refineries working? And we're still talking about more monies being put there to ensure that they work.
Thank you very much. Just like Serap says, Serap is in court challenging the federal government on some of these things. Audit, we suggested and insisted that audit of NMPCL be done. In the past, audits were done, forensic audit, but Nigerians never got to know about the outcome of those audits. There is the trust level between the government and Nigerians is very low. In fact, there is no trust anymore. The government need to consciously take actions to begin to win back the trust of Nigerians, because as of today, we do not trust them. We don't trust that whatever they say they will do based on precedence. Now, from the point of labor, also, we talked about government encouraging small, medium-scale companies, manufacturing companies in Nigeria, industry in Nigeria. They are no more existence. The few of companies that survive in Nigeria are just there because they have to survive. They post no profit. How are they going to operate to support Nigerians? So government should take conscious effort to encourage the small and medium scale industries to begin to thrive. When you do that and you are able to subsidize even the raw materials that will encourage production or manufacturing in Nigeria, you're already doing a lot of palliative, and right, not to bring a misplaced, very poor political concept aimed at buying cheap gains.
All right, quickly, let's just hear from Mr. Dari one more time. Mr. Dari, you had mentioned the Assembly also want lawmakers seeking palliative over 70 billion. Just to get a response to that, I know you touched on it a little bit. It was a question I was also going to ask. So what deliberate steps is Serap taking with regards to that plan for lawmakers?
Thank you very much. It's really worrisome that we are having these kind of conversations about a government that claims to be for the welfare of the people. We're waiting to the National Assembly, that is the leadership of the National Assembly, asking them to repeal their appropriation, the supplementary appropriation that we put before them. And so, of course, they have the powers to redirect those spending that have been allocated to them to address the situation of the over 20 million out-of-school children. Do they need palliatives? I don't think so. They are among one of the top earners in this country, as it were. That is, if we know the exact amount of their take-home. The National Assembly, as I mentioned earlier,